production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, a bipartisan group of senators introduces an immigration reform plan that's been endorsed by major farm groups.
Immigration reform rallies were held last week across the United States.
And in southern gardening, get in the zone. Zonal geraniums. You'll get a lot of color and they're suited to the South's tough environment.
In the markets, weather problems with corn could lead to additional cotton acres being planted, as a drop in milk production helps improve the farm gate price that farmers receive.
In the feature segment, a Farm Week flashback. We'll return to 1999 when we visited Paul's Pastry Shop. It's known now as it was known then. Great tasting king cakes that you can get year-round.
We're originally from California, and we didn't necessarily like the plain traditional king cake, so we started doing the cream cheese and the fruit-filled king cakes. And it's just kind of grown from there.
Good day, everyone. I'm Amy Taylor.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
An immigration reform proposal was made this week by the so-called Gang of Eight in the U.S. Senate.
Amy, the bipartisan bill would let many illegal farm workers stay in the United States permanently and create a new visa to help farms who need year-round help. It's been endorsed by a coalition of 11 major farm groups, including the American Farm Bureau. Gannett reports that farm workers who could document their work for the past 2 years would be eligible for a blue card under a guest worker program. The Christian Science Monitor said some 336,000 farm workers would be eligible in any 1 year. This blue card would allow them year-round residency for up to 3 years if they entered the country illegally. These visas would be renewed one time for another 3 years. After that, the workers would be required to leave the U.S. for at least 3 months before returning. The legislation specifies that farms employing workers who intend to apply for a blue card would be immune from legal action by authorities. Blue card participants would be required to pay taxes and learn English. After 5 years working in agriculture, blue card holders could apply for a green card and another 5 years, and then after that, citizenship. Well, these blue card visas would benefit farms who need the year-round workers. Now, the immigration proposal has been endorsed by the Agriculture Work Coalition, which was founded by 11 major farm groups. These included the American Farm Bureau, the American Nursery and Landscape Association, the National Milk Producers Federation, and the United Fresh Produce Association. Other supporters of the coalition include the Farm Bureaus of Florida, Georgia, Illinois, and Louisiana.
The proposed immigration reform bill would affect undocumented immigrants who came to the United States before December 31st, 2011. If they had stayed in the country continuously, they could apply for provisional legal status as soon as 6 months after the bill becomes law. Rallies were held across America last week by supporters pushing for immigration reform. Market to Markets, Mark Pearson reports.
Thousands of immigrants and activists rallied across the U.S. in a coordinated set of protests aiming at pressing Congress to approve sweeping immigration reform. If passed, the measure would create a path to citizenship for the 11 million immigrants living in the country illegally.
I will tell you what I've been telling people across the country. Work hard, push us, keep pushing us, and together we will deliver immigration reform this year.
Demonstrations took place not only in Washington, D.C., but also in states across the U.S. In Atlanta, Georgia, more than 1,000 people marched, calling for comprehensive changes to immigration policy and an end to deportation. In Los Angeles, California, protesters marched to the office of Senator Dianne Feinstein, a Democrat, to deliver a letter that called for immigration reform, stating, "The future well-being and prosperity of California depend upon an immigration system that truly respects and values the humanity and contributions of immigrants. undocumented and documented.
We need right now immigration for 11 million people that we have here in the United States working on the shadows. That's inhumane.
According to labor and industry estimates, up to 80% of the nation's approximately 2 million farm workers are here illegally. Growers say they need a better way to hire labor legally, but wages and visa caps have been sticking points between the United Farm Workers, or UFW, and agricultural interests. The UFW, a farm labor advocacy group, contends that growers are trying to push farm workers below their current average wage of $10.80 an hour. Growers argue wages are skewed by a small number of high earners and that most farm workers make less.
Well, as we enter the third week of April, finish the third week of April here, let's look at the Mississippi Weekly Crop Report from the Mississippi Ag Statistics Service. This report does reflect conditions as of Sunday, and it's wet, wet, wet out there in the state. 60% of the state has surplus topsoil moisture, and that has affected our planting. As we look at Mississippi corn, only 54% of the crop planted, 82% is normally the average for this state. The cool weather is keeping the emergence down. Mississippi soybeans, only 4% of the crop planted as of last Sunday, and the average for the state is 18%. As we look at Mississippi cotton, about on the average there. We don't usually see much cotton planted by the 14th, but Mississippi rice, far behind, only 5% of the crop planted as of last Sunday, normally 27% for this date. Mississippi watermelons behind as well, 27% of the crop planted as of last weekend. 58% is the average for the state. And in terms of Mississippi wheat, the cool weather is keeping the maturity behind. 87% of the crop joining as of last Sunday, only 7% of the crop heading, and it's almost usually half for this state.
Our hot summers can make choosing the right plant for summer color a challenge. In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman will show us zonal geraniums are a good choice for dependable summer color.
One of the showiest groups of plants we can grow in our gardens are zonal geraniums. The brilliant colored flowers of these plants are sure to impress. Red zonal geraniums are a classic garden plant that does not go out of style. The flowers are clusters of tightly grouped buds. The buds don't open all at once. The top buds open first, followed by those underneath. Here you can see the color starting to show. While there are other colors available besides red, the other colors I really like are pink or salmon. Zonal geraniums get their name from the coloration of the foliage. The bright green leaves are roundish and have a dark band that circles the center of the leaf. The leaf color provides a fantastic background to contrast with the flowers. The leaf edges are wavy and have a soft texture and release a spicy fragrance when touched. Zonal geraniums are known botanically as Pelargonium exhortorum and are native to South Africa. In Mississippi, the best flowering and growth would be in the morning sun with a little protection in the afternoon. When the flowers are finished, they need to be removed. Don't just clip the flower head. Go ahead and pinch or prune the flower stalk at the base. Geraniums are heavy feeders and need consistent fertilization. Apply controlled release fertilizer monthly to keep the plant flowering. Visit your local garden center this spring for the best selection of zonal geraniums. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Artist zonal geraniums are easy to grow. The cuttings root without much trouble. Let them grow for 8 to 10 weeks before planting. In the feature segment today, we'll go back 14 years for a special Farm Week flashback story. Paul's Pastry Shop is still in business, and it remains well known for its signature item, the king cake. And time now for the markets with artists, and it hasn't exactly been a typical spring.
No, it hasn't. Leighton Span's not with us today. I'm filling in for him. In some parts of the country, Amy, some weather-damaged wheat and corn could be replaced with cotton. Also ahead in the market, one analyst is convinced that downside risk is real for corn. Our promotional push begins shortly to keep pork moving through the marketplace, and the worst may be over for the dairy sector. Well, the acreage that could be planted to cotton could be on the rise due to the weather this month and last across the cotton belt. There has been freeze damage to winter wheat and emergence problems with corn. Meanwhile, the cotton market has not had the best of weeks. Leighton Spann talked with Extension Ag economist John Michael Riley on Tuesday.
Well, John Michael, the overall weakness in the stock market is not the kind of signal that the cotton needs as far as market trend.
It is not, and that's always been the case. Cotton, as we've talked about a lot here, much more receptive to changes in the general economy, and we're seeing that take place yesterday, a big drop in cotton prices as a result of downward pressure in other commodities and in the stock market. So those are typically barometers for what's going on in the general economy.
Let's talk just a moment about the most recent supply demand report, the April report. Recap for us again what that had to say about cotton.
Domestically, no big changes, a slight increase in terms of yield per acre or total production as a result of that final Cotton Jennings report, but that was offset by an increase in exports for the U.S. Most of those are landing in China. 13 million bales expected to be exported for this marketing year, left ending stocks at the same level it was a month ago, 4.2 million bales. So again, it was a fairly neutral report, and that was reflected in the day's prices.
So coming on the heels of what we got in March as far as planting intentions and that supply demand report, where do we see a cotton trend headed here as we look down the road?
Well, we had more acres planted than we were thinking as we moved into 2013, early stages of 2013, when cotton price was much more suppressed compared to corn and beans. Cotton price rose over that time period. We got more acres in the ground than I think we were expecting. It will be interesting to see if this cold winter or cold spring, what that might do to cotton acres. Some may be switching away from corn and putting more cottonseed in the ground. That's yet to be seen. But you know, right now everything's really looking toward the general economy. A dismal jobs report a week and a half ago is not helping things. Events like yesterday is not going to spur any type of demand for cotton.
Well, as far as maybe what producers might be considering doing, is this a time to go ahead and price the bulk of new crop, or would you not be? Still be hesitant on that?
That's the million-dollar question. You know, as I've tried to tell everybody, if you can pencil in a profit, try to lock everything down that you can. If not, then you want to consider your next step very carefully.
Well, turning to corn, analyst Mark Gold is urging some caution when it comes to marketing decisions for 2013. He thinks carryout could get huge come harvest this year. When combined with a reduced world demand for corn, Gold thinks it's a scenario that could spell trouble for producers who haven't planned accordingly.
We've had 100% of this crop protected because we really believe that the risk today is on the downside. We look at big acres. People out there don't seem to want to think that you can have trendline yield after a drought. Well, this is the first year we've had a drought in 12 since 1988. The genetics have improved dramatically since 1988, and I would certainly argue that we can grow trendline yield if we get decent moisture in June and July in the corn market, and July and August in the bean market. So when you add that to the number of acres we're looking at, the reduced demand that we're seeing around the world, it tells me that these carryouts can get huge come harvest, which tells me that there's a lot of risk.
Well, our trivia quiz this week deals with strawberries. Let's take a look. What is the annual per capita consumption of strawberries in the United States? Is the answer A, 2.3 pounds, B, 3.9 pounds, C, 4.8 pounds, or D, 6.1 pounds? You'll find out the answer before the Farm Week Flashback that's coming up.
We're going to pause now for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the second part of the markets. Artis Ford reports the pork industry is paying for extra promotion efforts this summer. Farmgate milk prices are also rising. In the feature segment today, Paul's Pastry Shop of Picayune, Mississippi. It's turned the king cake from a seasonal item into a year-round seller.
From our family to yours, Mississippi's farmers believe the best produce and livestock are grown right here at home. With ms.foodsearcher.com, you're only a click away. Using your smartphone, you'll be connected to hundreds of families and small businesses dedicated to providing you with fresh, local foods. Produce, meats, fish, dairy, agritourism, community markets, and more are right at your fingertips, no matter where you are. ms.foodsearcher.com.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. A Success with Longleaf Pine Field Day will be held Tuesday, April 30th. Hours are 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. It will take place at the Hyde Family Forest north of Leakesville in southeast Mississippi. Please pre-register by Thursday, April 25th. Lunch will be served. We'll have directions available on our Farm Week calendar. A Cool Season Forage Tour takes place Tuesday, April 30th. The location is the South Farm at Mississippi State University in Starkville. The hours are 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Small grains, annual perennial clovers, tall fescue, and efficient nutrient management are on the agenda. Supper will be served. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now, let's check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
Well, the National Pork Board has designated an extra $3 million for a summer promotional push to increase domestic demand. Board President Conley Nelson of Iowa describes the situation as critical. He says checkoff funds will pay for a campaign emphasizing the value of pork at a time when consumers are feeling a financial pinch. A similar campaign was conducted in 2011. Well, farmers' milk checks may be more likely to grow than shrink for the immediate future. Analyst Naomi Bloom says that production is down and the dairy industry may have turned the corner as far as farm gate prices.
There was a global trade summit for milk and there was an auction, and so the traders there gave us some positive news. There's an index that talks about how much milk globally and cheese and product is being used, and that index increased by 14%, which is a huge number. So that got traders excited, that got the cash markets excited, and because of that, then the whey market rallied, the butter market rallied, the cheddar market all rallied, and so the futures contracts, we had April milk rally 50 cents, May milk rallied $1, and finally we've got milk back up into the $19 area, which is perfectly where it's supposed to be. February production was actually down 3.5%. On milk, that's a huge number. Any percent change is usually a huge situation, and so for it to drop 3.5% was just astounding. We also have still less cows from years ago yet because of the higher prices and things like that. So that's something that's going to keep this milk market supported. And now I think we are in the clear to be able to stay up towards 19. We don't have a reason to go too much higher, but I think the worst is behind us. We'll probably see the exports pick up.
Before we stop by our feature story, let's look at the trivia board for this week's answer. It is C. The USDA says that per capita consumption of fresh and frozen strawberries is 4.8 pounds per capita per year.
As many of you know, Farm Week celebrated its 35th anniversary last October. Occasionally, this season, we've aired stories from years past. Our feature story today first aired in 1999, 14 years ago. It's about Paul's Pastry Shop of Picayune, Mississippi. This operation made its reputation on king cakes, the traditional cake of Mardi Gras. Paul's is still in business, and it's developed a year-round market for king cakes. You can order online, and Paul's ships them nationwide. Farm Week's Leighton Spann reports.
Mention the Superdome and you usually think of the New Orleans Saints. Mention Bourbon Street and you usually think of Big Party and Mardi Gras. A traditional part of carnival season celebrations every year in New Orleans is a specialty food known as king cake.
As far as the king cake season, it starts January 6th every year, goes through Fat Tuesday. Fat Tuesday is a different Tuesday between February and March.
Sherry Brown is a Picayune, Mississippi bakery owner who has grown a business around the specialty food of Mardi Gras. King cake is an oval-shaped delicacy sometimes described as a cross between a coffee cake and a French pastry. The traditional recipe for king cake calls for cinnamon. What has made the king cakes from Picayune so popular is the fact you have 39 other flavors to pick from, as well as the traditional cinnamon.
We're originally from California, and we didn't necessarily like the plain traditional king cake, so we started doing the cream cheese and the fruit-filled king cakes. And it's just kind of grown from there. We started out in a 400 square foot building. We're now in a 4,500 square foot building. We're getting ready to add on another 1,000 feet.
Paul's Pastry Shop in Picayune was started in 1970 by Sherry Brown's parents. Sherry bought the business in 1988. When you walk in, it looks like any other retail bakery. There are cookies, cupcakes, and regular layer cakes. But it is the production and sale of king cake that now accounts for about 40% of the business each year.
In the weeks leading up to Fat Tuesday, over 1,200 king cakes are produced in this bakery each day. It's much more than a regional specialty food. Today alone, king cakes have been shipped out to California, Wisconsin, even Hawaii. It's a specialty food with nationwide and worldwide appeal, made in Mississippi.
As part of Mardi Gras tradition, a tiny plastic baby is placed inside of each king cake as it is filled, unless you order otherwise. Custom has it that whoever gets the piece with the baby when the cake is served must host the next party and provide the king cake. Each king cake is handmade from scratch using a family recipe.
The mix that we use is our own recipe, and we needed so much so fast we didn't have time to scale it ourselves in here, so we've got a company now in Dallas, Texas that does our dry ingredients for us and bags of 50 pounds a bag. This is one 50-pound bag of our mix with the other ingredients of yeast, whole eggs, water, and we're mixing that for a certain length of time, and then we're going to take that out and we'll take it to the table and we'll cut it into pieces, and then we start filling them. All these on this side happen to be what we call a berry deluxe, and it's got cream cheese throughout the cake with a quarter blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, and blackberry in it. And these right here are the traditional cinnamon cakes.
There's an order form underneath each king cake on the long production tables. This piece of paper stays with the cake from start to finish because it's the only way Sherry Brown and her employees can make sure that they're filling the king cake with the right flavor or combination of flavors, and to make sure they are supposed to include one traditional plastic baby inside, or more than one, or none.
As far as we know, we have the largest selection of flavors available to the public, and it takes longer to do, and there's a lot of places not willing to do that, but that's what the customers want, and we wouldn't be here without the customers, and some really good help here. So
after being filled to order, the king cakes are baked, over 100 of them at a time, in one oven for 18 minutes. After cooling, it's time for the final step in the production process, glazing the cake. At Paul's Pastry Shop, this means covering the king cake with sliced almonds and a purple, green, and gold topping. Each day of carnival season, between January 6th and Fat Tuesday, about 1,200 king cakes are produced at this bakery. 300 of those go up front to be sold at Paul's retail store in Picayune. Another 600 are sold wholesale and delivered by company trucks to over 60 retail stores along the Gulf Coast. The remaining 300 or more are shipped out long distance by overnight delivery as a product Sherry Brown calls a party in a box. It's a king cake with a little something extra.
This one's apple, cinnamon, and blueberry and cream cheese, and I also get a Mardi Gras cup, and it has some beads and the balloon in it, just for a little keepsake. You'd really be surprised how many people want the box and the cup and the beads.
Sherry Brown and her employees have fun making this specialty food item. Word-of-mouth advertising has proven to be extremely effective in developing a market for Paul's Pastry king cakes that extends far beyond the Mardi Gras carnival season. For example, Sherry Brown created a Christmas wreath king cake in response to popular demand for the specialty food product during the holidays. In fact, you can get a party in a box any time of the year now with a king cake designed for every occasion. While New Orleans may be famous for the celebration of Mardi Gras, Picayune, Mississippi is becoming famous for the specialty food of the carnival season, king cake. I'm Leighton Spann reporting.
You can watch this story on Paul's Pastry Shop on our Farm Week website, Facebook page, or YouTube. The website address is farmweek.msucares.com. We'll also have links and contact information for you so you can get in touch with Paul's. It has a web page and a Facebook page. You can also buy king cakes from Paul's year-round.
Well, Amy Laytonspan got in touch with Sherry, and she's still there. She's still running the bakery, but her daughter now is old enough. She is running the retail part of the establishment, and they actually built a new store and bakery facility back in 2007. You can actually go there and get lunch now. They have a very nice lunch. And during the Mardi Gras season, of course, their cakes are available in many other locations. You said you've grown up over in Hattiesburg eating the cakes.
That's right. I grew up in Hattiesburg, and I grew up on Paul's King Cakes, so very familiar to me.
Okay, well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, we'll look back at the year 2012 in Mississippi and U.S. agriculture.
It was a year that saw animal rights make great strides as many companies agreed to do away with hog gestation crates. The Mississippi River went from too full in 2011 to too low last year.
In Southern Gardening, Blue Flowers, Gary Blue's brother Bachman will show us what's available. If you'd like further information on a Farm Week story or want to suggest a story to us, you need to get in touch with us. That's Farm Week, Box 9625, Mississippi State, Mississippi 39762. That's Box 9625, Mississippi State, Mississippi 39762. You can also get in touch with us on Facebook and YouTube. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Amy Taylor. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next week.